In the decade of the 2020s, even the great country of America was not spared the ravages of the worldwide depression. And at times of fear and confusion, the job of informing the public on how to save money was the responsibility of random idiots on YouTube. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is take your underwear out of the package, and you want to turn it inside out, because we're going to be making some marks on it, and you don't want that to show up on the outside of the suit, obviously. And since we're using a pen, you just want to be careful that you don't mark too deeply on it so that it doesn't bleed through. So we're going to be making some belt loops for the belt, and this will give the suit a little bit of dimension. Alright, so you have these seams on either side, and I'm going to make a mark 2 inches away from each seam. All right. And then I want these belt loops to be about 1.5 inches long. So I'm going to measure from that previous mark 1.5 inches. So let's make that a little bit longer. And I'll leave a link in the description to where I got these underwear. And you do want to buy these specifically because of the way that they're cut. There's no like normal underwear holes in it. And it also comes in a 2-pack. So if you mess up, you've got another one. And we obviously want to make this as thick as the belt here. So we'll just kind of do a line like that. All right, and there we go. All right, and now you want to take your scissors and we're gonna cut this out. So you want to fold it along this line and kind of just carefully get it started. So now I've got a hole there. And then cut up to the waistband. Do not cut into the waistband. And this line is just to tell you where to stop. Do not cut there. And then again, fold it in half along the line and just get it started. All right, and then if we turn it back, you can see we've got a belt loop here. So it's gonna look something like this. And then we're gonna fold the waistband inside like that. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing on the other side here. All right, so once you've got both sides cut out, what we're actually gonna do is use these cuts we already have as a guide for the back. So you wanna turn it back inside out. So see, since the back doesn't have these seams, it would be really hard to measure. So to make it easier, we're gonna turn it inside out, or I guess return it to its original state. And then we're gonna very carefully draw in these cuts. You do not want to get any ink on the outside, but you can kind of pull it open a little bit and then just make the mark here. Obviously, this is the back of the suit, so it doesn't matter as much since it'll be covered by the cape, but still want it to look good. All right. Now we've got the beginnings of our marks here. And you just want to elongate them. And then take your belt again, line it up with the waistband, and just make a straight line. And then cut along these lines just like last time. Alright, so once you've got all your belt loops cut, this is the point where you want to try it on. So try it on over the suit. You put the Superman suit on, obviously, and then this goes over it. So the belt is going to go like this, and then you fold the waistband in, and it'll look like that. Now you may need to resize the belt, and I'll show you how to do that now. So you can see here, you've got this little flap, so you can just open it with your scissors and just cut it to whatever length you need. So I'm gonna cut about that much off. All right. Obviously, be careful when you're cutting the belt, because once you cut it, you can't put it back on. So you just take your, well, actually I'm gonna make this edge a little more square. Alright, there we go, looks a little better. And then put it back in there and close it. All right, and now your belt is resized. And ideally you want this to line up where the end will fit under one of the belt loops that we made, so that you can cover up this logo that they put on it, and it'll also just look better because you don't want to see, you know, this piece flapping around on your suit. You want it to look like one smooth piece of leather. All right, so now we're gonna glue the waistband down. So you could sew this, but honestly I'm just going for quick and easy here, and it doesn't really matter since when it's folded in, it's going to be covered by the belt anyways, so you won't see if the glue bleeds through here. So you want your underwear inside out, And then you want to take your super glue and we're not going to be gluing to the belt loop pieces here. So only right here. All right, there we go. Wasn't open yet. All right. So you see just a line about like that. And again, do not go past these marks. And just press it down. All right. And then we're going to flip it over. And same thing on this side. Just a line of glue. This doesn't have to be super strong because again, the pressure from the belt will keep this from coming up too much. All right, and then I'm going to kind of fold it this way and we're going to get the sides. It's going to be very short right here. All right. So if it's bleeding through anywhere, just want to make sure pull that up because you don't want to get these belt loops glued down, because then you won't be able to fit your belt through, obviously. So that looks pretty good. All right, and you just want to let that sit for a while and dry.
I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi.
Destroy the Sith. We must. 13.
Are you tired of plugging in your smartwatch every night? Are you paranoid about the government spying on you? Do you feel like a douchebag whenever you wear your Apple Watch out in public? Introducing the NASA Royale. This isn't any ordinary digital watch. This is the Casio Royale with exclusive upgrades from Porcula. It comes with upgraded bright blue LEDs, a retro yet modern NASA style, and an NTAG 213 NFC chip with a mind-boggling 137 bytes of storage. Perfect for sharing your contact information, public encryption keys, and more. You get all the reliability and durability of a Casio with the benefits of a modern smartwatch, but none of the spyware. Order now and you'll get the NASA Royale with the rugged storage case, the instruction booklet, the original watch band, a tool for changing the watch band, tons of extra stickers, and a signature from Porcula himself, all for one easy payment of $200. Guaranteed to delight you. But wait, there's more. Order now and we'll include these extra flag filters from Oglog. They're yours free, so don't delay. Order your very own NASA Royale kit today. Alright, so I've got the suit on, and one thing that I've noticed is the undersuit rides up a little bit. So really we want the belt to cover the original belt that's just printed on here, but it keeps riding up unless you really tighten it down like that, and then it's a whole situation. So I'm actually going to cut some belt loops into the suit. So if you're having this problem, which you might not be having this problem, could just be how the suit fits me. So I'm gonna pull the underwear up to where it's covering the printed on belt, and then I'm gonna go look in our belt loop holes here and just make a mark. Alright, so I've got all my belt loops cut. Now, the first one I cut, I actually cut it all the way down to the bottom of the printed on belt almost, which is not what you want to do. You want to leave a little bit of room here and cut towards the top instead, because that's what's going to keep the belt from sliding down, because we want this to be covered. So don't cut it all the way down like I did on this loop. Hopefully it'll still work, but anyways, now we need to cut into the underwear again. So you can see how we've got the waistband folded down, which looks great, but we need to cut out a little bit more so that the belt can go through here and into the undersuit. So just take your scissors and cut like that. You don't have to cut all the way up. In fact, be very careful. Don't cut past this sewn part right here. There should be enough stretch to be able to get the belt through there. And one more thing I did on the suit to keep the underwear lined up is I sewed one black button on there because it was still riding up in the middle. So I sewed that button in, and then I cut a little slot here in the front of the underwear for it. Now would also be a good time to cut the gloves off the suit. So you want to cut as close to the thumb loop as possible, because this is stretchy, so it'll stretch up your arm farther than you think it will. So cut as close to the thumb as possible, and if you need to cut more off, you always can, but you can't put it back on. Alright, so for the cape, I cut it out of this fabric I got from Walmart. It's a peach skin, 72 by 58 inches. And what I did was basically lay down the fabric on the floor, and then I laid the original cape over it and traced around it. Now, I made mine a little bit longer because I'm on the taller side, and then I also left a lot of room up at the top here. So you can see this is the original cape, but I cut a lot more out at the top here. So I left a lot around here because we're actually going to be tucking this in to the suit, kind of like how it is in the movie, instead of just doing it around the neck, like with this tiny little piece of Velcro. Alright, so in terms of attaching the cape to the suit, I decided to do Velcro. I have these 4 pieces of Velcro. These attach onto the back, and then these get sort of tucked under the shoulders. And this works well enough. I actually didn't end up using these 2. They just get tucked in and they don't get attached to anything. These 2 back pieces are sufficient, and then the pressure is enough to keep these tucked in. But originally I had tried to super glue these pieces on, and that didn't really work at all, so I ended up having to sew them on. But the super glue left a residue on the back that was really uncomfortable, so I ended up gluing these pieces of foam on there to make it more comfortable. So honestly, just don't even bother with super glue, just sew these on, and you don't really need these top 2. These 2 on the back are completely fine, and if you find that this is coming untucked or something, then I would honestly recommend cutting a hole right about here, and then just threading some, I don't know, like a spare shoelace through here, and then tying it down like they did in the actual movie. Alright, so here's what I've got going on the suit. So you zip it up. It's much easier if you have somebody to help you with this, but you can kind of do it on your own. So you kind of have these 2 pieces that attach on like that, and then these just get tucked in like that. And you can see more super glue residue right here because I originally had another Velcro piece here, but like I said, it's not really necessary. So again, this gets tucked in like that. And then that looks pretty good. And then the last thing I would do is iron this cape, and I've got some fraying edges here. I don't know, I'm not really that worried about it. You could fix this with some kind of glue, again, like even the super glue, but I'm honestly over the super glue. It's rough and irritating and it gets everywhere. And I don't know, I don't really care about these edges. I might trim some of this off, but Either way. Okay, so I actually ended up messing up the first pair of underwear that I made. I was trying to trim away at the belt loops and I cut through one of them. So I remade the underwear and I decided to sew it this time just so you can see what that looks like. It really doesn't make a difference. Super gluing it down is just fine. But I made another mistake. I made a line on the wrong side. So this is on the outside now. So what I'm gonna do is just continue that line, actually. I'm gonna make it look like it's sewed on. So if you're having this problem, this is what you can do. Just add more of these dashes. Because the best way to recover from a mistake is to just pretend like you did it on purpose. So there we go. Now it looks like a design feature of the suit. It looks like I meant to draw this sewn pattern on the bottom of the belt loop. Because that's kind of how it originally was. The belt loop kind of came up and around the belt and then it got sewed on like that. So, you know, just get creative with it. If you make a mistake and you can't correct it, then just lean into it as a design feature. Alright, so in terms of putting the suit on, I'm going to be wearing this thermal suit underneath it to keep warm. They also make suits like this that will keep you cool, so it just depends on whatever environment you're in, but I would recommend doing this just because it makes it more comfortable, at least in my opinion. But like I said, it's much easier if you have someone to help you, but this can be done by yourself. And I would recommend wearing some socks that are on the thicker side just because the boots are a little bit uncomfortable. Alright, and then you can kind of reach in these belt loop holes we made and pull the shirt down, and then the underwear. And then put the button through. Alright, I won't lie to you guys, that took a minute. And then just take your extra pieces, tuck them in, and then take your belt. And tuck that in there. Alright. And then last thing is the boots, which honestly, the boots are like half the cost of this whole suit. So if you're not wearing this outside, then you don't even really need them. But anyways, that's about it for this one. So I'll see you guys in the next one.